Welcome to the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon, live from the virtual grill room of the St Francis Yacht Club. We hope that you are safe and sound, sheltering in place in a comfortable environment, and we look forward to greeting you back in the Yacht Club just as soon as this pandemic is over. Our speaker today was born in Norfolk, Virginia, where my father once got on a ship and headed to Japan in World War II, so he talked a lot about Norfolk, Virginia. As a second grader, our speaker remembers riding in a troop transport ship when his dad was commander of fleet activities in the Japanese islands south of Japan toward Taiwan. He even spent his 60th birthday powering past the Portsmouth Naval Hospital where he was born. So he is a Navy man and a nautical person through and through. He's going to talk today about the new state-of-the-art Littoral Combat Ship USS Oakland, which is coming to town. As a Rear Admiral, U.S. Navy retired, he is also chairman of the Commissioning Committee, and he's going to take us behind the scenes on what commissioning committees do and how commissioning committees fit into the, into the Navy world, and how we as citizens get a chance to see our ship be basically commissioned at a ceremony that the public will be invited to and we'll get to learn all about. So it's with great pleasure that we welcome Tom Andrews, Rear Admiral, U.S. Navy retired, and the chair of the Commissioning Committee of the USS Oakland, which is coming to her hometown, Oakland, at a date we're not going to talk about because we can't ever talk about Navy transport ships in advance of their transport. Tom Andrews, welcome to the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon.
Well, good morning. And thank you so much for inviting me here today to tell you about an exciting event that's going to happen in Oakland in 2021. Well, one of many, I am sure, as we emerge from this pandemic, and one that I'm particularly excited about. The USS Oakland is in the water right now. She's finished her sea trials and has been accepted by the Navy. The plan is for her to be commissioned on April 17th, 2021 at the Howard Terminal in the Port of Oakland. So why am I here today? Well, first of all, you all asked, and it's a forcing function for me. I keep refining this presentation, practice, practice, practice. It's a good way to spend a pandemic Wednesday morning. Got a wonderful audience here. So how can you say no to that? So, and we need help. And so I'll talk about that later. And really, after all, it's appropriate that I'd be speaking to you today as the USS Oakland fits well into your club profile. You're one of the esteemed yacht clubs of the world, steeped in tradition, but known for innovation. So the ship and crew could probably qualify for membership in the club, as the USS Oakland is a symbol of naval aviation, and the crew are certainly sailors, racers, cruisers, and proper stewards of the sea. So since you asked, I'm here today to tell you a little bit about the ship and the commissioning process. So let's talk about the ship first. You may ask, what is an LCS? What is a littoral combat ship, and why is there one named after one of our Bay Area cities? Well, the Navy was looking for a new type of ship that would offer it some flexibility in mission. They wanted maneuverability, like one of our old hydrofoils. One of my University of Virginia classmates, Bob Johnson, was actually the chief engineer on one of the sister ships of this one. They had to fasten their seat belts on the bridge when they got up on their foils, and they could do square turns by laying the ship over on its side and coming up at a 90-degree angle. A littoral combat ship won't be able to do that, but that's what they're looking for, is maneuverability. And they wanted power. The Navy wanted something that could project some power, but on a platform smaller than that of a battleship. Now, this is the USS Iowa firing her 16-inch guns broadside. Now, I was always told that when battleships fired their guns like this, they move sideways, but I discovered that truly they don't. They churn in the water you see right here is really the result of the force of the muzzle blast. The ship doesn't move an inch. It doesn't even keel. And they wanted stealth. They wanted something that could be stealthy like the Sea Shadow shown here in Alameda. Now, the Sea Shadow was an experimental stealth ship that was built by Lockheed for the United States Navy to determine how a low radar profile might be achieved to test high stability hull configurations that have been used on the oceanographic ships. And they wanted something versatile. The Littoral Combat Ship was to perform several missions, hopefully being able to fulfill the roles normally ascribed to fast frigates and minesweepers, with additional taskings for special operations and logistics. You see here the classes of ships that they were trying to replace, with 3 of the 4 missions over here that were finally ascribed: surface warfare, mine countermeasures, and anti-submarine warfare. The 4th is special ops, and we'll talk more about these later. So they came up with the concept of the Littoral Combat Ship. Now, originally this ship was supposed to be able to be of a single frame, which could accommodate multiple mission modules in an interchangeable payload. What they ended up with were 2 different variants: a monohull version called the Freedom class and a trimaran called the Independence class. Here you have the pictures of the 2 lead ships of the 2 classes. The first LCS, USS Freedom, was commissioned in November of 2008 in Veterans Park, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The second ship, the USS Independence, hence the name of the class, was commissioned in January of 2010 in Mobile, Alabama. And because the expense of changing out mission modules became so prohibitively expensive, each ship is now built dedicated one of the intended missions. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. The USS Oakland is an Independence class ship and the 12th of its variant. So what the heck is a littoral anyway? Littorals are defined in this case as the area between the beach high water mark and the edge of the continental shelf. As you probably know, that dimension changes remarkably from place to place. For purposes of the Littoral Combat Ship conversation, though, just keep in mind that the ship of this class are intended to operate closer to shore than most Navy ships. And yes, it is a small surface combatant in size somewhere between an Oliver Hazard Perry class frigate and a Cyclone class patrol ship. Now you can see some of the salient characteristics here: 419 by 104 by 14 feet. My ship, the USS Roanoke, had 450 crew, and the carriers we sailed with had nearly 5,000. So that gives you some perspective of a ship that has a crew of 70, 40 dedicated to the ship and 30 dedicated to the mission module. I had working parties that big. Now, originally planned for 55 ships, a program of 55 ships, the Littoral Combat Ship was envisioned to be a networked, agile, stealthy surface combatant capable of defeating anti-access and asymmetric threats in the littorals. I believe the current requirement is to be fulfilled in the combined variants of 35 ships with options for 3 more. We touched earlier on the multi-mission aspect of the LCS class. Each ship has the capabilities of a small assault transport, including a flight deck and hangar for housing 2 SH-60 or MH-60 Seahawk helicopters, a stern ramp for operating small boats, back here, and the cargo volume and payload to deliver a small assault force with fighting vehicles on the roll-on, roll-off port facility through the side mission bay ramp. Now, the standard armaments include a Mark 110 57mm gun and RIM 116 rolling airframe missions, both of which you'll see momentarily here. Now, depending on the module, they are also equipped with autonomous air, surface, or underwater vehicles, and a whole suite of equipment specific to the mission, such as mine detection sonar shown here. Now, large mission bay aft, beneath the hangar deck, is where much of the mission module equipment is housed. So how about this USS Oakland? This is actually more than I got to see of the ship when I went back to Mobile, Alabama for her christening in June of 2019. She was totally in her hangar with the doors mostly closed. On the left here, you get the view that I got as I approached the hangar. But the view on the right happened much later as they were bringing her out to launch her. Now check out the gas turbine powered steerable water jets here, which comprise the propulsion system of the Littoral Combat Ship. I used to deal with riverine patrol boats back when I was with Special Boat Unit 11 in Mare Island. And the patrol boats had similar jacuzzi pump steering mechanism, but you can see the comparative size here. Ours were much smaller. Now, she's a fast ship. She's advertised as making up to 44 knots, plus some more in a pinch. So here she is, fresh out of her cocoon. She's been designated as an ASW asset, so she will be configured accordingly. I'm not sure exactly what detection system will be deployed on her, as a number of them are currently being tested. However, the Tails 2087 towed array sonar gives her the ability to detect diesel-electric submarines while on the move, even better than destroyers and cruisers. To attack submarines, the ship will have MH-60 helicopters equipped with Mark 54 torpedoes. So let's see how they run. She's going backwards there.
T-minus 3 minutes to launch. 3, 2, 1, fire.
All right, we're here to talk about ship commissionings too. Commissioning the U.S. warship is a tradition that has been in practice since the commissioning of a captured British ship, the Margaretta, in 1775. It is, by some accords, the most significant event in the life of a ship. The commissioning ceremony is the time when the ship is brought to life by its crew. The commanding officer ceremonially takes command of the ship and orders the first watch to be set. The crew boards the ship, mans the rail, and brings key elements of the ship to life. The ceremony normally takes a little over an hour to complete and is conducted outdoors in the vicinity of the ship, regardless of the weather. The number of individuals invited will vary depending on the location of the ceremony and the interest in the ship. Past commissionings in the Bay Area have been attended by between hundreds and thousands of people. Here you see the crew of the Tulsa manning the rail while its gun and radar are brought to life. So there's a number of reasons the Navy holds a public ceremony to commission a ship. First, it provides a wide range of Americans the opportunity to celebrate the success of their investments. It's also viewed as fostering widespread understanding and support of the ship's mission and contributions of our armed forces. Finally, it's viewed as having recruiting, retention, and public affairs opportunities. The Navy The Navy League of the United States and local communities have become strategic partners in the planning and execution of commissioning ceremonies. Now, in this slide, you see the crew of the USS America running to board their ship and man the rail, generally led by a chief petty officer. You can see at this one, Pier 3032 in San Francisco, there were a couple of thousand people in attendance at that ceremony. So here's the history and the future plan for the USS Oakland. Yeah, you can see they started construction back in 2017, had the Keel Laying in 2018, and the Christening Ceremony in 2019. In June of 2020, she was actually delivered to the Navy, and later this month, she's expected to sail away and head to her future home port in San Diego. Now, right now, we're projecting the commissioning ceremony to be on April 17th, 2021, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to share with you here a couple of the major milestones that have happened so far. As noted in the last slide here, the first cut of the USS Oakland was made on May 24th, 2017, over 3 years ago. Now here you can see a token. It's tradition that when you do the first cut, you do a token for the ship. Still haven't been able to find a picture of the token of the USS Oakland, so this is the one from the Santa Barbara. Next, there's the Keel Laying, and that ceremony was held on July 20th, 2 years ago. Now here you see the ship's sponsor, Kate Brandt, inscribing her initials into a plate that was affixed to the keel of the ship. The whole matter of ship sponsors is discussions for another day. However, regarding Kate, she is the Chief Sustainability Officer for Google and was much in the same role for the Navy when Ray Mabus was Secretary of the Navy. Now, while she was with the Navy, she was responsible for the greening of the fleet. So Secretary Mabus recommended her to be the sponsor of the USS Oakland. Now, she was also the nation's first sustainability officer when she was appointed to that position by President Obama. She worked in that role for the General Services Administration during a period of time when I was there. And obviously she is quite accomplished and luckily based here in the Bay Area. And finally, the christening ceremony was held in June of last year at the Austal Shipbuilding Facility in Mobile, Alabama. Now, this is the ceremony that most of you are probably more familiar with, when the ship sponsor christens the ship by breaking a bottle of champagne over the hull of the ship, wishing the ship safe voyage. Here we can see the point of impact. Now, Kate maintained her aplomb. I gotta give her credit for this. She maintained her aplomb throughout the rest of the ceremony and all the photo opportunities thereafter, all while soaked with champagne. So let's watch it.
Traditions in the United States Navy. It marks the ship's transition from a mere hull number, LCS 24, to a ship with a name and a spirit of her own. Seafaring nations across the centuries have maintained a tradition of formally dedicating a ship into their fleet. This ship will begin her new life at sea infused with the sponsor spirit. Through today's ceremonies, we commemorate the important milestone in the life of the future Oakland. Folks, you'll see behind us,
United States of America, I christen thee, Oakland. May God bless this ship and all who sail in her.
Okay. And of course, the next big event will be the commissioning, which, as I mentioned earlier, is currently planned for April 17th, 2021 at the Howard Terminal in Oakland. I hope you all can join us for that event. Now, as some of you may know, putting on one of these commissioning ceremonies takes a lot of planning, it's a lot of effort, a lot of work and execution. Now, up to the commissioning week, the committee spends most of its time raising money for the ceremony and for all the stuff that goes along with it, and planning the various events and the collateral that goes with them. Now you can see that aspect in the left column here. Now, during commissioning week, there are a number of events that occur coincident to the commissioning ceremony, and you'll see those on the right column here. Now, we anticipate having hundreds of people at some of these receptions and up to 10,000 people at the actual commissioning ceremony, since it's a ship being commissioned in its namesake city. But of course, what happens in April will largely depend on where we stand with COVID-19. The Navy has done a couple of commissionings recently under COVID protocols, so we will see how this plays out over the next few months. And of course, it takes a lot of money to make these things happen. We believe we're going to need somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 to pull this off. I'm hoping that some of you online with us today might want to join in on the fun and become official donors for the event. I'll ask Ron to send these documents out to you so that you can have that opportunity. Now, I'll let you know that if you join us at the bridge level, which is $500, my deputy chair for logistics, Mike Dennis, will send you a bottle of his Dennis Brothers port wine. And if you join us at the bronze level, not only will you get a bottle of the Dennis Brothers port wine, you'll also get a bottle of Trioni Winery's Henry's Blend red wine, one of the best wines I have ever tasted. I sincerely hope each of you consider this opportunity. And thanks for the opportunity to share this tale with you today. I hope you all can join us for this great event next spring. With that, Ron, I'll turn it back over to you.
Wonderful, Tom. Thank you very much. Holy cow, kind of exciting that the USS Oakland is going to come to Oakland. So now let's see a couple things. First of all, how many littoral combat ships do you think there'll be in the force?
Well, they originally were planning for 55, and now it looks like there's going to be 35 of both variants.
And what does littoral mean? I saw the context. It's a close to shore ship, but how does the word littoral fit into that purpose?
Well, the missions of this ship, wide and varied. We have 4 primary missions. One of them is special ops. One of them is logistics. And in both of those instances, the ship operates mostly in the littorals, near the shore.
Okay, so I guess I'm just ignorant of the fact that littoral means close to shore.
Right.
Okay, I didn't know.
Between the high water mark and the continental shelf.
So now I see the boat draws 14 feet or so, 100 feet wide and draws 14 feet. And I see it's a catamaran or trimaran. It's all. Have you seen foiling trimarans? I saw one picture of a foiling one. Have you seen a foiling breed of combat ships yet?
Yeah, the hydrofoils. When I had the maneuverability slide up there, back in the late 70s, early 80s, they had the hydrofoils, which ended up being more of a drug interdiction ship than anything else. But those things are awesome. When you got them up on foils, their maneuverability, my friend was chief engineer on it, and he did 90-degree turns where they lay the ship over on its side, bring it back up at 90 degrees and sail on. So it's pretty impressive. This ship isn't that maneuverable, but you saw in the video that she actually can move backwards. So you take the pumps, and you can bring the ship straight backwards, which most ships can do that, by with their props, but it's a little bit more of an effort to get her to move backwards.
So what's the power system for the ship? Is it nuclear or what?
It's a diesel. So diesel electric. So beyond that, I really, I should have that information, but beyond that, I really can't tell you exactly what the plant's comprised of.
So what if I ask kind of a pedestrian question like cruising range? Is that something that you can talk about?
No, I mean, I don't have that. And that's something I probably wouldn't talk about. I mean, when you advertise her at 44 knots, that's about the most I can tell you about the operating specifics of the ship.
So now, when we go on races, overnight races to Hawaii, Mexico, and so on, we create a watch system, and they vary based upon, the type of race, the length of the race, and so on. When you're at sea in a combat ship like the Oakland, what is the watch system?
On my ship, it was 3 watches. So you stood 8-hour watches, 24 hours a day. With the USS Oakland, with a crew of 40, you know, I imagine that they'll still have 3 watches, but the watch team is much smaller than was on my ship or on a carrier. They might have only 2 or 3 people on the watch team and a person down in engineering. So.
Now you said it carries, did you say 2 helicopters?
Yeah,
Stowed
2
below?
MH-60 helicopters.
And I saw it look like 1 landing deck for a helicopter. So
Yeah, the flight deck is enormous on this thing. It's actually much larger than was on my 792-foot ship.
because of the trimaran configuration
Right.
and so on.
Yeah, 104 feet wide. That's a pretty big flight deck.
Yeah, really. Now a carrier is 1,100 feet long, right?
Right. So yeah, I mean, they vary depending on the class, but yeah, 1,100, you know, 3 football fields is how people normally describe it.
Uh-huh. So this is basically a third of a carrier. That's what I'm getting to.
Well, she's 461 feet long, but the flight deck itself probably, it might even be 100 by 100 when you take a look at it. It's probably larger than that, probably 150 by 104.
Uh-huh. Now this boat was built. Was there a published cost to build?
I've actually seen that cost, but I'd hate to give out the wrong number right now.
Now I see that you had the sustainability officer at Google as part of she was the christener.
She's ship sponsor. It's an ancient tradition in the Navy that each ship would have a ship sponsor.
So talk about the green footprint of this ship. It's diesel powered. So how is it sustainable? In what ways?
Well, the greening of the fleet, which Kate led under Ray Mabus, was the initiative to change the way the ships operate to make them the fuels that they use. You know, gosh, I don't know if I can really answer that question right now because we use Navy distillate in my ship, and we had JP5 for the aircraft, but the fuel mixtures that you're using on the ships right now are much more friendly to the environment than the Navy distillate that was used on my ship. And I imagine that and I don't know this, but I imagine that the emissions are much better controlled out of these ships than my old ship.
We've had speakers from the Navy War College, one of which just gave a presentation about the comparisons between a war game created at the Navy War College in September 2019 with the actual national response to COVID-19. That presenter, who was a pretty objective person, pointed the differences between what they modeled would happen by the response of a third world country and what actually did happen by our response, America's response to the COVID-19 crisis. Now, in that game, maybe our response wasn't as great as a third world country, but in this arena, it seems that America is pretty unparalleled in terms of focus of resource. The Navy seems to consistently put incredibly great technology to work inside your ships, etc. So how long ago did you hear about the Littoral Combat Ship? How long were you learning about it as a Navy guy?
You know, ever since they came up with the concept, I mean, it's been something that you just kind of keep up with in the background. But when I was asked to be chair of the commissioning committee for the USS Oakland, it was full speed ahead, find out more about the ship and find out more about the program. So I mean, that's my interest, and it really is. When you look at it, especially the trimaran, I mean, not only is it a functional ship, she's a beautiful ship, and it's fun to watch.
So now, is this considered a weapons system, or how often do you deploy something this significantly different and new and novel to the force?
It depends on the mission. I mean, the Navy, gosh, just in my career, has gone through quite a few initiatives in terms of warfighting platforms. And as you saw in the presentation, we had, patrol craft and fast frigates and other ships out there that were dedicated to certain missions. And the goal of this ship was to be able to take those missions in one platform. And, we ended up with a trimaran and a monohull, but it's still the Littoral Combat Ship single platform.
So now, it used to be that we'd think a lot about battleships. They're real powerful. And my dad in World War II, I mentioned, he was on the heavy cruiser Vincent, which was sunk in Guadalcanal. He was one of the survivors who made it out of that sinking. When he came back and he did the one-time talk about that sinking, he said to me, Ronnie, let me tell you, surface ships are pretty impressive, but having spent 3 days in the water, submarines are pretty lethal. Okay, so.
But here's the difference there. He survived the sinking of the Vincennes. Most submarines that are sunk, there are no survivors. So.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, right. I was on a submarine yesterday, incidentally. I was on the Pampanito in San Francisco Harbor yesterday, World War II submarine, and they will quickly remind you of the lethality of submarines if you go on a tour there.
Well, they call everything above the ocean, they call them targets.
Exactly right. That's right. They're not surface craft. All those are targets.
My dad was an aviator, so he looked down at all of them.
Uh-huh. So now, this particular ship, I asked the question, this is the kind of a platform. When was the last sort of like major initiative like this? What can you remember that seems like this as an initiative?
You know, it's interesting because, you know, you look at what the composition of the Navy is right now, and most of the innovations in the Navy haven't been new platforms. I mean, we just had the Zumwalt, right? We just had the DDG Zumwalt come in, which is, I think there's only 2 of her class now. And they're actually going to be extending the Arleigh Burke class.
Explain for those who don't know about the Zumwalt. That's another class or platform. Describe how it's different from this and what its mission is.
Just in terms of the weapon systems that these things carry and the sensors that these things carry, that's where most of the innovation is in the Navy right now. I mean, even on aircraft carriers, you look at the new class of aircraft carrier coming out, and she's got a whole new catapult system they're still trying to work the kinks out of. But most of the innovations in the Navy come in terms of the sensors and the weapons that they carry, not necessarily in the platform that carries them.
So I was out once on the new heavy cruiser, missile cruiser Vincent in the, I guess it was the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And they were real excited with its functionality. However, in test missile launches, we noticed that every now and then there'd be a dud. Every now and then, literally in front of the public, and I was there as a guest, we saw that some of the missiles didn't actually hit the target and or explode. And he said, well, it's because we're still new. It's going to take a couple of years. How long will it take? How long does it usually take to like work out the practical kinks in a new form of technology like this Littoral Combat Ship?
Well, the Oakland is the 12th of the variant of her class, and yeah, so they've spent 12 ships getting this thing right. So insofar as working the kinks out, I think within the program, the LCS program, that they've worked out most of the operational kinks of the program.
You mentioned earlier there is the ship operations, and then separately there's the mission troops, mission combat troops. So talk about the difference. The people who are running the ship, talk about the difference between the two forces.
Well, the ship complement, LCS to LCS, is pretty much the same. You've got the same mission to operate the ship. The mission module itself, whether it be anti-submarine, anti-mine, mine countermeasure, I should say, the special ops, you've got a totally different group of people coming in to man the ship for that module. I think the ship can handle up to 90 crew. So that would be a total of the mission module and the ship's crew itself. And the Oakland has 70 with a 40 and 30 mix. So, if you get a special operations group in there, probably going to have 90 people as opposed to the 70 that's in the anti-submarine.
Now, you're also the chairman of the commissioning committee. And the commissioning is, tell us about the commissioning and who can come and what do we do? What do people who want to attend do? And what accompanies those who might be interested in supporting the effort? What can and should companies do?
You can come to the ceremony for free. In fact, if you go on USS Oakland Commissioninge.org, there's a button up there that you push to get tickets. So that's free. In order to be involved in like my reception, the chair's reception, or the breakfast platform briefing, things like that, there's, we ask for contributions for those efforts because, they do cost money. So, and the Navy's not allowed to raise money for any of these events. I mean, the Navy, pays for the commissioning ceremony itself, but it's not allowed to pay for any of these other events. So that's where the commissioning committee comes in, and that's where your folk come in.
So you're likely to have local dignitaries, the mayor included, and so on, in Oakland. And this is going to be in Oakland on the estuary?
It's going to be at Howard Terminal, future home of the A's, hopefully, huh?
Okay.
Right down from Jack London Square.
Okay, so people could get there by Metro Transit. Can they take BART to get to this or that?
Not until they build the A Stadium. There's ample parking around Jack London Square, though,
Okay.
and it's being held on a Saturday, so it's not like there's going to be a lot of operations going on around there.
And you said April 17th, 2021?
That's right.
Yeah, great. So our St. Francis Yacht Club members and other viewers of the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon are welcome to come and tell friends about it. When's the last time that we commissioned a ship in Oakland, Navy ship?
In Oakland, it was probably one of the Coast Guard cutters. So that they commissioned the Coast Guard cutters there at Coast Guard Island in the estuary. So that's been probably a couple of years. The last ship we commissioned here in the Bay Area was the Tulsa last year.
Where was that held?
That was at Pier 3032 in San Francisco.
And what type of craft was the Tulsa?
Same as the Oakland. She was
Okay, so a littoral combat ship.
Littoral Combat Ship of this class, of the Independence class.
Great. Well, Tom, it's been fun learning about the ship, learning about how we as citizens can come and watch the commissioning of it. That's kind of fun. And thanks so much for being a guest of the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon. You're welcome to come by the club when we open up again. We're going to want to have plenty of Navy folks coming by. And if you do tell us when to look out the windows, we sure as heck want to look and wave at the entrance to the gate of the Littoral Combat Ship USS Oakland. So
she'll be sailing right by you.
Yeah, exactly. We love that whole idea. So thanks very much, Tom. And on behalf of the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon, we appreciate your presentation. And with that, luncheon is adjourned.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate the opportunity.